and welcome to all of you. We are glad to have you here at Marwick. If you're a resident on campus, thanks for coming. And for those of you who are connecting with us electronically, we want to say a special hello to you as well. Today we welcome Kristen Leucht, who's our Board of Pensions representative for Southern California. Talk about some very important topics related to the changes in the medical plan for those of you who are on that plan. Thank you, Jeannie and Kristen, for arranging this date. I'm quite grateful. So let me just open us in a word of prayer, and then Judy Durf will introduce Kristen. Our gracious God, we are thankful for the gift of health. As Psalm 139 says, our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we know that. And at the same time, Lord, our bodies, like everything else about us, needs your tender care. So we thank you for the Board of Pensions, for those who are stewards of those funds, and how those funds contribute to the health of so many current PCUSA pastors and ministers, missionaries, not only in this country but around the world, and also to so many who are retired now and part of the pension plan. Lord, it's remarkable to think that this plan began in the 1700s, and here we are, several hundred years later, as the beneficiaries of that. So we thank you for Kristen. We pray for clear communication, for open hearts and clear minds to hear what she has to say, and we entrust this next hour to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Judy?
Well, I'm delighted to be able to introduce Kristen to you because I met her over 20 years ago when she first came to Cañada Presbyterian to interview for the position of Children's Ministry Associate Pastor. And we were excited and delighted when she agreed to take that position and join that staff. But at that time, we did not realize the bounty of gifts with which we were being blessed. It wasn't too long after that she began to really revamp our children's ministry and introduce new creativity and new ideas. And before she knew it, she was also handed the responsibility for the youth ministry and the youth interns. The last 7 years of her 21 years at Cañada Presbyterian, she also served as the executive pastor. And in my humble opinion, she kept that place operating through some very difficult years. She's a graduate of UC Davis and Fuller Seminary. She is the Right Reverend Kristen Leucht. She's married to Chris, and they have 2 adult children. In 2019, Kristen joined the Board of Pensions as a senior church consultant. I had to make certain I got that right. Senior church consultant for, now hear this, the Synods of the Southwest, the Synod of Southern California and Hawaii, plus parts of the Synod of the Rocky Mountains. And in addition to that, she's an active member of the San Fernando Presbytery. She serves on the Committee of Ministry and on the Committee for Preparation. So she's a very busy and talented lady. Now, I don't want to detail for you her work at the Board of Pensions. You're going to understand that when Kristen speaks to you, okay? But there's one thing I really want you to hear and to remember. When you call her, because you will, and I will, and there will be times when we make those calls and there is a crisis. When you talk to Kristen, you're not only going to get the information you need, but you're going to receive pastoral care, because that's who Kristen is. She knows how to walk with us when we most need help. So, Kristen, come and tell us the facts. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Marvelous intro.
Here, take this one, and we'll figure out this one.
So it's fun to be here because I recognize some of the faces, and I've been in this room more than once. And in fact, I was installed, I don't know the right word, became the moderator of the Synod of Southern California and Hawaii in this room. So this is kind of a fun place for me. I love what I do at the Board of Pensions. It is all kinds of details and all that stuff that I love, but it's also pastoral care. And so it feels like it's the best part of both. So I'm just delighted. So I'm thrilled if you called me, and no problem is too hard. We'll figure it out. But I'm here because you all want to figure out Medicare. So, and especially with some of the changes that the Board of Pensions is doing to our plan. So I'm just going to give you a high-level overview of Medicare stuff so that we all are on the same playing field, and then go into a little bit more details about our new plan. So you should know that Medicare has many parts. So Part A is hospitals in general. Part B is doctors in general. And everybody, all seniors, have Part A and Part B. Part A is free. You've paid for it through your tax contributions when you were working. And Part B, there's a premium. So part of that is being withheld from your Social Security check, or if you didn't participate in Social Security, you're paying that premium to Medicare in general. Okay, so everybody has A and B. But A and B is not enough, because if you just had A and B, you would not have prescription drug coverage, and you would have a very high deductible. I believe the deductible for Part A is like $1,600. So most people get something else. And there's a whole bunch of alphabet letters as to what those something else's are. So D, Part D, is prescription drugs. And there's a lot of different prescription drug plans out there, but that's what Part D means. Then you can get what's called a Medigap plan, and they have various different alphabet letters. But in general, a Medigap plan goes alongside Parts A and B and reduces your deductible and provides some other benefits. So when you all will be bombarded with those mails and TV commercials come a month or so from now, it's all typically the Medigap plans that are competing for your dollars. They want you, hey, come with us. And they have a variety of different things that go with them. Our plan at the Board of Pensions, the one that we are currently in now, is a supplement plan, which in general is a Medigap plan. And what that means is you have the supplement plan, you pay their subscription costs to us, and we offer some benefits through that, plus we reduce your deductible from that Medicare has. So that's what a supplement plan is. We found that last year at this time, we needed to make a really hard decision and increase the cost to all of you, your monthly cost, for about 24%. And that was heartbreaking to us because we know you all are on limited incomes, and we know that those are very important dollars. But that's what we needed to do because we are what's called a self-insured plan. So that means every dollar that we receive, we have to hold and pay out the dollars. There's not another pile of money somewhere that's going to pay for costs. So that's what a self-insured plan means. And so our actuaries work to make sure that we can pay your medical bills. We can live to the promises that we've made to all of you with our plan. So we made that increase. We lost about 200 to 250 people making that jump because that just was too expensive for them. So we began to look hard at our plan and the affordability of our plan. We discovered about a third of the people who receive a pension from us are getting our Medicare supplement plan, which means 2/3 of the people are not. And there's a variety of different reasons for why they might not be, but the number one reason that they told back to us is our plan was too expensive. Well, also at the same time, our actuaries, beginning to look at the cost for 2023, came back to us and said, you know, that 24% increase that you did last year, well, you're going to have to do it again. And you're going to now go from a $340 a month subscription cost to something over $400 because the cost of health insurance has gone up significantly. We knew we could not do that to y'all again, and we needed to find another option. So we chose to go look at an Advantage plan. And I know some of you have all heard what it is, but that's a Part C plan. And that's an Advantage plan is a plan that bundles all of the different options together. So it includes prescription drugs plus some other benefits. This is really important distinction. We are a group plan, which means that we go and negotiate with the organizations, the insurance companies, as a group. That is very different than what you might experience as an individual when you go out and look at a plan. So when you hear an Advantage plan as an individual and you go look at the Advantage plan, you're looking at something that's very different than what our plan is going to be. Typically, Advantage plans as individuals are more like an HMO, more like a Kaiser kind of thing, where it's a very limited network. When you want to go from one doctor to the next, you have to have referrals and all that sort of things, the things that you would associate with Kaiser. This is what we call a passive PPO. So it is absolutely not an HMO. It's a passive PPO, which means you can go to any doctor that will accept Medicare and be willing to bill Humana. So part of this process, when we went out and searched which company we were going to choose, we had several different criteria. One is which we sent them all our data, and we wanted to make sure that at least 85% of the providers that are currently providing your care would be in the Humana plan. We found out that it was about 95% of the providers that are currently being billed to our plan are there. We wanted to make sure that they would have a dedicated customer care service team just for Board of Pensions, and they have done that. So there's a team, when you call the number that I'll give you, and they know our plan, they are dedicated to Board of Pensions. So that was important to us. It was important to us that they understood faith-based communities, because we know that we can be a little different than other group plans. And this, the Humana plan is used by some of the Lutherans, and I believe it's the the Methodists, thank you, I couldn't remember the denomination. So they're used to faith-based communities. And they looked at our costs, they looked at our age demographic, and they came back to us and said, we can offer a plan that is better than your current plan, because they had that in front of them, for no cost. Now, all of us were going like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. But here's how it makes sense. The government and Medicare has been moving more and more to incentivizing people to go to Advantage plans. And how the Advantage plans get paid is there is a fee that Medicare pays per person to the plan. And the amount of money that they paid is based on several factors, but the two important to us were that they're a high-quality center, so Humana is a 5-star rated plan with Medicare, and it's based on age. And the general age of our population is 80. And so because of those two things, Humana felt confident that with the money that they were going to be reimbursed by Medicare, that they could offer no premium cost for folks in our plan, and they're guaranteeing it for 4 years. We are going to be in close relationship with them and paying attention to that, so that we don't want in year 5 to suddenly go from 0 to $500. So we're from day one in conversation with them. How's it going? What are the costs look like? All of that. We're not pretending that this is a one and done. So we're actively monitoring, and if we need to make a change, we don't want to, but if we need to make a change because something goes through the roof, unexpected, we will let you all know with plenty of time. So, but it was, even for those church consultants, we were pushing hard against the folks who were telling about this. It was like, this doesn't make sense. But that's how it does. So Humana is confident they can cover our members for zero premium for you all for 4 years. When you've looked at some of the details of the plan, and I have them, and they're making more copies, so there's a thing called co-insurance. And what that means is it's the term that describes the 80%, 20%. So that's called co-insurance. The current plan, when you reach co-insurance, is 20%. In other words, the Board of Pensions pays 80 and you pay 20. Humana's co-insurance is 4%. So when you hit that number, they pay 90%, 96%, and you pay 40%. Their cutoffs for when they reach the 4, that 0 is really important. There's a decimal between the 4 and the 0. When the cutoffs are very similar to what it is now, and you will, instead of paying the 20%, you're going to pay the 4%. The deductibles, in some cases, are 0, and in other cases, they're exactly the same. The maximums are exactly the same, and a lot of this is driven by Medicare. So you can go to different plans and find it to be true, but a lot of it's driven by Medicare. So that's at a very high level, our plan. Mostly I wanted to be able to have you ask me questions, because I know that this can be stressful as you sort of have trusted the Board of Pensions when you were in active service, and now trying to figure out what it's going to be like in retirement. And so I wanted to provide some chance to have you ask me some questions. But how many of you saw the video, the webinar last week? Okay, a good many of you. That's been recorded, and so as soon as it's ready, we're going to flip it back out to you so that you can see that. A couple of other things. You're going to be, if you are in our plan right now, you're going to be receiving an enrollment kit. Like if it hasn't gotten your mailbox this week, it will be next week, very soon. That's if you're in our current plan. So who can be in our plan effective January 1 is anybody who is in our plan right now, anybody who was in our plan last year but stepped out because it was too expensive, and anybody who retired this year. Now, for those of you who are not in our plan but you are receiving a pension, January 2025, you will be invited to, you will have an opportunity to join this plan. So right now, we just needed to, administratively, we couldn't open the floodgates quite that wide. So right now, it's anybody who's active, anybody who retired this year, and anybody who was in last year that didn't come in this year. Yes, Sandy?
I understand what you're saying, but I also think I'm an odd duck and might fall through a crack.
Okay.
I did retire this year, like 12 weeks ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not yet 65 and not on Medicare, so I'm still self-insuring with the BOP until my magic birthday. Is that right?
Correct. So you can't be in our plan until you turn 65. You have to be Medicare eligible. I'm really sorry.
Okay, hang on. Before we get questions going, let me just add a couple things here. First of all, Kristen has some copies of both the medical plan document as well as the prescription plan document. There probably won't be enough for everybody to take, so I have one set of each of those documents. Edgar has agreed to copy them, so he will have those in his possession tomorrow morning. If you want one, just get over to Edgar's office and he'll run it right there for you. If you don't get one of these documents this afternoon, because I don't think we made enough for everybody. Okay, so Don't anybody hit the panic button on the documents. They'll be available tomorrow. Just see Edgar, okay? Now, there's going to be lots of questions, and I'm wondering if rather than randomly popping up, we should kind of move through the rows. I don't know exactly how we should do this, but I know most of the rest of the time is going to be consumed with questions. So are we okay with just random stuff? Okay, Don, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
And Sandy's question, so while you go out, just repeat it. Sandy is yet 25. She is not yet 65. And so in order to be in our plan, you have to be Medicare eligible, which means you have to be 65.
I raised my hand because I didn't hear what Sandy said.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure what you're saying about what Sandy said. But I, again, raised my hand. Today, this morning, I called the Board of Pensions over a matter that has just been undecipherable for me. And I've never had anyone talk to me as well and as thorough and as welcoming as I had this morning calling the Board of Pensions, and I thank you for the Board of Pensions.
Well, I'm grateful to hear that, and that's not going away because we're now working with Humana. So in this transition especially, if you have any questions about the transition, about what will be covered, about any of the plan, you may call the Board of Pensions. The Board of Pensions person will be happy to talk to you logistics about the transfer, and then they will call Humana on your behalf, and so then there will be a three-way call, and you can either just have a conversation with Humana and excuse the Board of Pensions persons if you'd rather not reveal your medical information to a third person, or if you want, that person is happy to be on the phone with you to make sure that your question is answered. So you can still do that, and even 6 months, 9 months, a year from now, if you have any questions, you absolutely can call us, and we will get the answers for you, or we will what's called a warm transfer. We'll contact Humana on your behalf and help you get the answers that you need. So just because we're working with Humana doesn't mean that we are stepping away from our customer service.
Yeah. Kristen, just one quick clarification. If we have questions like that, we don't call you directly. We call the Board of Pensions, and then could you explain that relationship?
So yes, you can call me if it's easier for you to call me. And depending on what your question is, I may be able to answer it on the spot, or I may be able to, if I can't, then I will say this is really a question for member services and then connect you with them. So if you want the first point of contact be me, absolutely you can call me. I can tell you that I might not know your answer to your question, and I'll be happy to. What I see myself a lot is a sign pointer, and I might be able to say, I don't know that, but that would be a great question for Humana, and here's how to reach them. Or that's a great question for member services, and here's how you reach them. Or here, let me find this document online, and I'll send you a link. So I'm happy to be a resource for information.
Is it true that Medicare pays out a larger amount per claim for Medicare Advantage plans over standard Medicare?
That is my understanding, and that's why Medicare's moving and trying to incentivize folks to go to Advantage plans, which is why Humana was able to do coverage for y'all for 4 years at no cost.
I just want to know what those telephone numbers are.
So if you grabbed a sheet that looks like this, it's on the back under resources, and it has the Board of Pensions numbers, and it has the Humana number. I will have to point out that we're going to have 3 webinars in October. That's a joint Board of Pensions and Humana. So this is a great place to ask your specific coverage questions. You might not want to ask something like, I've got this mole that it needs to be removed, but you can say, well, tell me about a hip replacement. How does that happen? So medical questions, probably not personal medical questions.
Kristen, up to this point, as I visit elderly people, ourselves included, of course, the word advantage is always, up to this point, for me, associated with an HMO, like scan and other plans. So my familiarity is HMO, i.e. advantage, or straight PPO. What I heard from the members of the Board of Pensions who spoke as clearly as I guess I understood, the advantage part throws a monkey wrench for me because it muddles the clarity of PPO. Where am I going wrong?
Well, and you are absolutely right, and we don't get to pick the language, so we are an advantage plan. But where we are different is we are a group advantage plan, which is an unusual thing. I mean, you have the unicorn of benefits. It is very unusual to have an advantage plan that is a passive PPO, but that's what we are. So yes, absolutely, I can understand why when people hear that, that's what they think it is. This is different. This is a passive PPO, which means any doctor, any provider that takes Medicare and is willing to bill Humana is in network. Now, the provider might be confused because they're used to dealing with the HMO Humana thing. So if you bump into a provider that has some questions, you can do one of two things. You can ask the provider to reach out to Humana, or you can call Humana and ask them to reach out to the provider. And they will be able to, Humana will be able to explain to this provider the passive PPO and the coverage options and limitations. So if you bump into some resistance, try that. There is an alternative, it's not preferred, but you could do something called self-pay, which means you pay the cost yourself as long as they take Medicare, and then you send Humana the bill, and they would reimburse you the 100% of the Medicare cost, what they would have reimbursed the doctor. Obviously, that's a lot more administrative work. That's not what we would prefer, but that's sort of a stopgap. But I absolutely understand our brains are wired to think HMO Advantage Plan, and that's not this case. So y'all are creating new synapses in your brain because the Board of Pensions is a passive PPO Advantage Plan. What it means, an active one means that it has to be in network or out of network. A passive one just means it's a PPO and anybody who bills is in our network. So that's what that means.
Yeah, three very quick questions. First of all, my wife and I are part of the plan, so I presume I've gathered there's nothing that we need to do. We will automatically be enrolled. Is that correct?
Yes, you will get an enrollment kit. You'll get some information. If you do nothing and you're in our plan, you just roll over into another plan.
And then two other little questions. First of all, we use Express Scripts. I've got that card in my billfold. That'll, quote, go away. Is that correct?
Correct. So what will happen is you're going to move to the Humana prescription drug plan. And thank you for that question because it's a couple of things. One, in the transition, if you're moving from our plan to this new Humana plan, make sure that you have that you don't need medication on January 2nd. So make sure you've refilled it so that you're ready to go in the transition. You get one more prescription if you need it with Express Scripts in the transition. So the formulary may change if you need to go talk to the doctor about the formulary change. and you need some time, you can come and refill with Express Scripts one time. If you have open prescriptions, so let's take you take a maintenance drug and you have 6 more months of refills, Humana will know that. So Express Scripts is going to send all of that data over to Humana, and all of that will transfer over. So you shouldn't need pre-authorization. The 2.5 years of history that we've been with Express Scripts all goes over to Humana. The only exception would be a controlled substance. So if you're taking a controlled substance, there will be something that you have to do. You will get a letter from us this fall talking about that. You will get a letter from Humana early in the year that says, hey, Express Scripts said these are the drugs you're taking and these are the refills. So you'll get a letter from us and a letter from Express Scripts.
And one more question. My wife and I have had a small dental insurance through our personal dentist, and it's coming up for renewal in the next 2 weeks. This new plan will also offer dental, and so what do? It'll renew now in the next 2 weeks, and then in January, what do I do? Do I cancel out of the one that just enrolled, or how do we handle that?
It's your personal level of comfort. So you could choose not to renew and hope all things go well with your teeth between now and January 1. Or you could find out with your current dental plan what is the unenrollment process to explain that you're going to a new plan that has dental coverage, and so you don't need it. So I'd probably get that clarified beforehand and not just presume that you can unenroll.
What's the process for ordering drugs?
I don't know where the voice came from.
Right here.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is
For
it
prescription drugs?
prescription drug? Do we call Humana direct? Does the doctor call Humana directly?
So Humana has their own prescription drug thing, and that you will get instructions as to how the doctor calls the company. I'm just blanking on the name. It begins with a C, and as soon as in the middle of dinner, I'll remember what the name of the company is. But yes, similar to how the doctors handle Express Scripts now, it would be the same. It's just Humana's version of Express Scripts.
An interesting fact, we have 7 doctors that we go to, and 6 of them are in the plan and are agreed, to bill Humana. The one doesn't is unfortunately the most expensive one. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is that if they're not in the plan, we have to contact Humana.
That would be my recommendation, and you can do that now and call Humana and say, this is the doc's name, this is the phone number. They have said that they're not willing to bill Humana, and Humana will make an outreach call to them.
Well, interestingly enough, the doctor wants to be part of the plan, but isn't yet. He said maybe by January of 1, he'll be part. What's the
Well, but remember, it's a passive PPO. So he doesn't have to be a part of the official Humana plan. He just has to be willing to bill Humana. So
Okay.
if that doctor wants to be a part of the Humana plan,
He does.
then I mean, obviously I can't speak on behalf of the doctor,
Right.
but I would imagine that he might be willing to bill Humana.
Okay.
So that's where this is different. And again, the unicorn of the plan is they have to be willing to bill. They don't have to be formally in Humana's plan.
Okay. Thank you.
A question from the back.
Okay.
Mine's similar to that. Most of us have 4 or 5 doctors, and if you've got a husband or a wife, that adds more. And I've been thinking this means that I need to get every doctor's phone number because I'm not going to be seeing all these before January. But I decided to try it out when we went to a dermatologist, and I asked about the billing. Well, you know, who do I get to talk to? It was the front desk person who does your appointments. So who is the best person to talk to? Because she said, no, we don't bill Humana. And so if they are not involved, which he is not, and who would I talk to within a doctor's office? The doctor themselves or the billing people? And how would, and then do I explain that? Or do you think just it would happen quickly if Humana called them? Or they don't know, they didn't understand anything about it because they don't deal with Humana.
Right. So you definitely want to talk to the billing department. You could talk to the doctor, and they may or may not know, depending on how big the clinic is and all of that. You could try calling Humana, because sometimes Humana has a list of, these are the doctors we've dealt with, and they've even in some cases done a one-off where in this particular case they're willing to bill for this particular patient. So you could start with Humana and see what they would recommend you doing if they feel like an outreach call from them would be taken more seriously and they know who to talk to. Or you could try the billing department.
And then I wondered also, is that available? Would Humana have a list of Pasadena doctor area people who it would save me time calling 10 or 12 doctors myself. Do they have a list that we could search through and see if our doctors' names are on it already?
That's a good question. I suspect they would absolutely have a list of the people who are formally in their plan. Whether they kept a list of the people who are willing to bill, that I don't know, and that would be a great question for Humana.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Martin?
Okay, the microphone wins.
I got a little lost on the prescription issue. Our physicians currently send our prescriptions to CVS.
Okay.
So it sounded like there was some other route you were talking about.
So Express Scripts is our pharmacy benefit manager. So I'm talking technical, which means they're the Humana of the drugs. Humana has their own pharmacy benefit manager. That doesn't impact going to CVS. That is more having to do with mail order subscriptions. But you would need to make sure that CVS takes Humana. But yes, if you normally go to CVS and if
just
they take...
check to CVS.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And somebody in Santa Barbara said they did, but I'd want to double check.
Right here.
Yes.
Okay, this is maybe is an emotional question, but we've been here not very long, 3 years, and have been signing up with many doctors, and almost without exception, they always say, oh, Medicare A and B. Old Medicare is the gold standard. Everybody takes that,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would complain about the Advantage folks, and so it's hard for me to think that is going to be helping me to go into this.
Yeah, and that's a hard one. Our passive PPO Humana, the doctors would be reimbursed at the 100% Medicare rate. So whatever they were getting reimbursed relative to the traditional plan, they would get reimbursed at that same rate for us. So in terms of the doctors, I don't know what the disadvantage is unless they're thinking of the individual Advantage plan where it is maybe perhaps more work because they have to do some referrals and all of that, which is not the case for ours. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that question or how to sort of allay that fear.
But isn't Medicare our primary and Humana is becoming our secondary the way Blue Cross Blue Shield used to be?
No, in the sense that it's absorbing A and B. You will still have to pay your B premiums, but it's going to function, and it's mostly on the back end with the doctors and the billing and how all of that than how you're going to experience it.
Don't understand.
So,
Medicare A and B, we don't be taken out of
Right, but what was covered in that is now in your Advantage plan. So what you will experience will be the same. Does that make sense? So I'm wrestling with how to explain that. And so there's two sort of ways that Medicare functions: traditional with the A and B, and then all the Medigap plans, and then the Advantage plans is a different way. But Advantage plans incorporates everything that's in A and B and makes it better to the extent that the Medigaps made it better. So it reduces deductibles, provides other things. So yes, in that sense, you will be taken out of traditional A and B because you're moving over to this Advantage plan, but you are not going to experience a lack of whatever is covered in A and B in the Advantage plan. It's being replaced by that. It's complicated to and I'm also not an expert, so I'm wading into waters that are a little deeper than I know. Yes.
Yeah. Let me see if I have the numbers right, correct here. You can let me know. First, in this change, we are not losing anything that we already have. Point number one, is that correct? We're not losing coverage that we have now.
Correct.
Second point is, if someone is in the plan and is using paying the Medigap insurance for that other 20% in the hospital, that will no longer have to be paid. And that is running, if I heard you correctly, will be running at least $500 a month, about, right? $400 a month. So at least, say, $5,000 a year less money in the pockets of those who are members of this new plan. And if it's a couple, that will be more than $10,000 a year.
If we had kept the original plan. I mean,
yes, comparing,
so
the change actually is going to save, if it's one person, more than $5,000 a year. If it's two people, it'll be more than $10,000 a year.
yes, and there's also savings because some of the things that we covered at cost for you is 20%, now the cost is going down to 4%. So in addition to not paying the premium cost, some of your medical costs will go down. Yes.
I have two concerns and two questions. Every one of us in this room is old enough and smart enough to know there is no free lunch. And Humana in 2022 made a profit of $956 million. They did not do that by providing free lunch or free insurance. And a few years ago, Humana paid a $200 million fine to the state of Florida for overcharging on their payments there, overcharging Medicare. Anyway, in addition to that, some of us are old enough to remember in the 1980s when our General Assembly was planning on leaving New York. They had an extremely competent relocation committee studying a number of sites. And somehow Humana power and clout helped Louisville people basically hijack the General Assembly and kick out the committee's recommendation for relocation and move the office to a free building with lots of promises from Humana. And Humana quickly began to renege on those promises. And this leaves me at least very, very edgy about what you're proposing as we leave Medicare, real Medicare. And anyway, my questions are, this is a passive PPO, but I'm aware of at least one couple resident here who have been part of an Advantage plan for a number of years, and suddenly, without agreement, that plan, which was a PPO, was suddenly shifted on them to an HMO. Will Humana have the power in the future to do that to us and limiting our choices?
So you said a lot of things. I can't speak to what happened with the General Assembly moving. Y'all would know that I was like in junior high when that happened, so I was not paying attention.
You're not blamed for it.
Thank you. I absolutely agree that there is some healthy skepticism of, okay, how is it that we're getting something for nothing? Absolutely understand that. How it's been explained is that how Humana is making their money is coming from what they're reimbursed from Medicare for you, not on your fees. And that's the difference. So like we're a self-insured plan. So it means that any money that we can pay out towards medical costs have to come from your subscription costs monthly. So now the financial model for Humana is that they're getting reimbursed from the government per person, and they're confident that with that reimbursement, they'll be able to provide care for people. So that's what they have said. But the other point is, we also fully recognize that this may not be for everyone. And if somebody doesn't feel comfortable with Humana, we have resources for how you might think about what you want to do. And I've put two on the bottom of this sheet. One is shiphelp.org, and the other is My Via Benefits. I've used My Via Benefits a lot, where you just go in, you enter your zip code, some basic health information, and it will populate Medigap plans and Advantage plans that would be appropriate for you. So if you don't feel comfortable with Humana, that's absolutely fine. And with your packet, you will get an opt-out letter that you just need to send to us by November 1st so that we make sure that we don't auto-enroll you. So absolutely, if this doesn't feel comfortable for you, you need to make the best choice for yourself.
Hugh's got a question.
Yeah.
Okay, Hugh?
Kristen, I was just getting some scans done. The question that was raised to me, do you have the Medicare card and do you have your supplement card? What will we be getting as of January 1 to show to doctors, imaging places, anywhere else?
So in December, in the first weeks of December, you will get a card from Humana. And that will be what you show beginning January 1.
And that'll take care of everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom? Wait, Livia, hang on. I'll get you a mic in a second.
Yeah, one of the things that, when I first heard about this, I too shared some of the skepticism that David made so clear. And but one of the things that really impacted me from the video last week or 2 weeks ago was the actual small number of retired people who are in the whole plan. Mm-hmm. And obviously that just posed a real financial threat. Here's my question, which probably isn't answerable. Has the board looked at the material or looked at the population and said, with this new plan, we will likely regain a number of people that were previously lost?
I mean, we would only know who was in our plan before. There might be 1,001 reasons why they're not. So I know of somebody who had a military career alongside a pastoral ministry career. So they don't need any coverage because they have it through TRICARE. So there's lots of reasons that we don't know, so I'm not sure that we could do that with any sense of accuracy.
Yeah. This is just for clarification. Is it true that if we leave Medicare A and B, we cannot go back to it at a later date?
That I don't know.
Because I thought I heard that in the video that we saw, and I wasn't sure I understood that correctly. that if we leave it, we can't go back to it.
I don't believe that that was in the video, but I don't know that answer to that. A good question to one of the future webinars, well, one of two things. One, I can chase down that answer for you. So if you give me contact information, I can find out. Or you could choose to go to the webinars that we're going to host later in October and explicitly ask Humana and Board of Pensions folks, people who know way more about that than I do. But I'm happy to get the answer in between if you want to know right away.
Kristen, it might be helpful to clarify, moving to the Humana plan does not require anybody to leave Medicare A and B. This isn't, people are still going to pay the Medicare premium, is that correct?
You will still pay your Part B premium.
That's right.
So it's underneath on the technical stuff. So technically, you are leaving it. So that's not, it is accurate, but what it's going to feel like is very much the same because the A and B got absorbed into the Advantage plan. Does that make sense? So technically, she's correct, and I like to be technically correct.
I have a question about the webinars. In October, are they different each one, or are they similar?
I would imagine that the front-end content will be the same, but there'll be lots of Q&As.
Okay.
So it might be a particular question that gets asked at one and not the other.
If you miss one, is there a way for us to listen to that one in later?
I haven't heard if they're going to be recorded. I could find out for you. I know the one anyway, the one that was recently was recorded, and we just have not yet gotten it. It has to be formatted, and once it gets formatted, anybody who received the email invitation will receive the email link to the one that we just did.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Helen, let me get you a mic here.
This is just a quick Google search that says, yes, you can return to original Medicare should you want to opt out of Medicare Advantage.
So there you go. Google is better than I was right off the top of my head.
So this plan, the passive PPO with Humana, is for 4 years. This is a trial time, 4 years, and then in 4 years, Board of Pensions will assess whether that was a good decision or not, and then the population could be moved into a full HMO. That's following along David's thinking, because there is skepticism here as well.
Right.
And then if at that time you choose you do not want a full HMO, then you would have the opportunity to have your A, B, D, and pay a supplement.
Correct. So let me just clarify, because I like to be technically correct.
Yes.
So we signed a contract for 4 years with Humana, as we do with all of our vendors. So we want to tell you with absolute certainty that it's going to cost zero premium, and these are what we've negotiated for 4 years because we have signed that contract. That does not mean that in year 5 things go dramatically different. We don't know yet. And we are from day one, we are staying on top of it. So if things look dramatically different, you are going to know with plenty of time to choose other options. We can just say with certainty for 4 years, this is what it's going to be like.
Other questions?
Merrily.
Here we go.
Oh.
There's a mic here. Pass it over to Merrily, and mic here.
Okay, you said something about having our meds up to date by January 1st. Now, just about that time, my doctor has told me that I need to have another Prolia shot in mid-January. Will I be able to, and I'll have to pay for the Prolia, which is what it is. Will I be able to be a part of that plan to pay for my meds at that time?
That is a great question for Humana. So I would call them and be very specific. This is the drug that I need. This is when I'm going to need it. How do I have that covered?
Okay, I've got another quick one. I don't have dental insurance, so do I just need to tell my dentist to ask him if he takes...
So again, it would be similar to all the medical doctors. Do they take Medicare, and would he be willing to bill Humana?
Thank you.
And one thing I should say that all the vision plan of Humana almost identically matches the vision plan that you have now. So we just gave you all vision just this past year with the supplement. And so what's happening with Humana is going to be almost exactly the same.
Well, there is just one fuzzy thing that I heard, that you mentioned the charges that we historically have paid, we no longer will pay out of our monthly pension, and that's going to be absorbed by Humana. And are we paying an additional cost, or what is the situation?
So there could be several we's in that question. So we, as in you all, will not have anything taken out of your pension check.
Okay.
Board of Pensions isn't paying anything to Humana, because how Humana is getting paid is through Medicare.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So I have several copies of the, this one is the drug coverage, but I also have the details of both the drug coverage and the medical plan. You are welcome to that. There's also links on our webpage if we run out of copies, or you can see the gentleman who's making copies. Let me tell you what else I have. If you are feeling like you don't want to do Humana, this booklet is something that we give out to retirees that sort of explains Medicare and the various ABC letters, and also some helpful questions as you're thinking about what might be next. So just some stuff as a reference. I also have a booklet from Medicare that also explains the ABC stuff and the original Medicare. So both of those you're welcome to take.
Kristen, do you want people coming forward to get those, or should we put those on the back table for
I
them?
can put them on the back table.
Okay.
You'll also see on the back table a quarter sheet that describes the Humana webinars that are coming up, and as well as just a high-level overview of our plan. On the back side is a timeline, so it tells you, okay, this is when you're going to get your enrollment kit, this is when you should get your card, here's when you should get your opt-out letter to us. It also tells you a little bit about some of the other bonus features that comes with this Humana. Vision, dental, silver sneakers, but you all have a great fitness center here, so I'm not sure if silver sneakers is a big thing for here. But anyway, for other folks, that they've been clamoring at us for years to get silver sneakers, so we finally did it.
Kristen?
Yes. No, if you just want the Humana plan, you will roll over into it. You will get enrollment information, and you just don't have to do anything, and we'll just move you on over. Yes, in terms of us in enrollment, yes, but in terms of your doctors, you need to do your due diligence and make sure that they're covered, and they're willing to bill Humana.
Kristen?
Yes.
Currently, I think of medical care as we go to the doctor, we get an EOB from Highmark, we get a bill from the doctor and pay that. We're not going to be getting anything from Highmark, like an EOB, right?
Right, because Humana is replacing Highmark.
Right. Will we get any EOB type of thing from Humana that tells us, because that tells us what, who pays what part of what thing?
I would imagine, yes. I don't know why they would make you suddenly try to guess what you owed. But that would be a great question for Humana.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment, not a question. I just want to thank you. This has been very clear and helpful and calmed at least my nerves. And want to also thank the Board of Pensions for understanding the pressures that we live with financially and what a stretch it's been to be able to afford the current medical plan. So I celebrate this, and I'm grateful that you did your homework on our behalf. So thank you, and thank you for
You're
today.
welcome. And you are welcome to contact me with other questions. And like I said, I'm a great sign pointer in saying, if I don't know the answers, here's where you can go get them. So thank you. Yeah.
Follow up to Lynn's comment, can we please express our appreciation for Kristen being so clear today. Thank you, Kristen, for being here. So there's documents that are available for you, and Jeannie is going to host Kristen at dinner if you want to sit and have more conversation with Kristen. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for being online, and we'll see you next week.